Kick off. Cyril, I'm going to come to you first. Can you just, Michael's already set the scene quite nicely, but where have the last couple of years, what have they been like for you? Where have things grown? Where have things shrunk?
So we're interesting times in the semiconductor business today. On the one hand, there is quite a lot of activity due to ideas of reshoring, of building new capacities, and in certain geographies, be it in the US, be it here in Europe, or also in Asia. That's one hand. There's also quite a lot of incentives from governments to do that. So there's a lot of innovation on that side. On the other hand, we also see companies like NVIDIA, Chairman Chow has talked about the AI, generative AI, etc., that is driving new innovation, also needing innovation on the semiconductor side. So there's a lot of potential there. And on the other hand, we have somewhat of a global crisis, financial crisis, economic crisis, and financing deep tech hardware companies these days is difficult. Finding investors that are bullish, that see the innovation, is difficult. That was very different 3 years ago, where there was just abundant amounts of monies, private monies, going into startups and also in hardware companies. Today, it's a little more sluggish, and as such, it takes more time to get startups off the ground and financed.
So true, but you're nodding away to all of that. Have you got anything else you want to add? Because
totally agree that in the past, even in the futures, if we want to jump into more advanced technology, usually hardware is bottleneck. But I just want to mention about when we touch about AI, how to impact and how the opportunity AI will create. And as a Taiwanese, we always think about the AI to combine with hardware. Okay, so actually, Chairman Huang from PSMC, he just mentioned about every time in Western, we talk about AI, and we also have two key words, ChatGPT and NVIDIA. And that means just focus on training, AI training program or cloud-based AI application. But for a hardware-based industry, and just mentioned about the hardware difficulty and the possibility for AI application. Actually, we target, our investment target is focused on once to do the AI on chip and how we to do the affordable reference designs and to speed up the AI on hardware application can be affordable price compared with the performance scoring. So from my point of view, I just want to add on. The one is, if you have a problem, try to create an AI opportunity based on the hardware difficulty. Come on, Taiwan is your choice. That's it.
Okay, well that's your pitch.
Yeah.
Michael, I want to just go back to something that Cyril said earlier about new investment being sluggish, and something we said before we started today. About in the UK, perhaps people are investing more in their existing portfolios and not seeking new businesses. Is this something you've found?
Yeah, and I think that, I listened to a panel earlier today, and I think that's true. And talking to other co-investors out in our community, a lot of people are looking to preserve the health and well-being of the founders they've already backed. That creates a stall in the pipeline, as I call it. So you won't see that really ripple out into the ecosystem for another couple of years, when you'll see gaps appear. But yeah, I think it's fair to say that most investors are focused on preserving the opportunity that their current founders are pursuing, rather than putting lots of new money to work. The consequence of that will be there'll be gaps in the supply of startups in a couple of years' time, as we don't see the volume at the early stages coming through. So that's the implication of that.
Actually, and Cyril, you've got portfolio companies in Europe, in America, in Asia as well. What's the difference between those three territories?
So we do have companies both in the US as well as in Europe. So I would actually be interested in hearing about Asia in a minute from Simon. But it's a very different fundraising environment. On the one hand, there are more investors that in the US that invest in semiconductor and hardware companies rather than here in Europe. Less so on, the problem is not so on the early stages. So seed stage, kind of rounds of Series A, sub 10 million or so, that's what you can do easily here in Europe with the funds that are available. But that's nothing when you think about a semiconductor company. You know, we need to think about bigger rounds, and getting such rounds together here in Europe is difficult. Whereas in the US, there are still investors, not necessarily traditional VCs, but other investors that invest in these kinds of companies. So that's one big difference. On the other hand, what we see, there's on the startup side also a fundamental difference. There's, in Europe, very often we have very strong technological founders, but we miss business acumen. We miss kind of founders or managers or so that can bring a company from the early stages where it has developed its technology to market, going from technology, even the first step, to product, thinking about product. In the US, the founders always think about product, not about technology. Technology is a means to an end. And then going from product into market, etc. Very few good CEOs here in Europe that can do that. And that's kind of the challenge that we have when we spin out things, for example, out of imec, our partner R&D institute that we work with closely, to find good managers. And very often we also start looking abroad or actually in other continents in the US, to bring in managerial talent that can take a core innovation where we have very many also here in Europe, but make it into a product and go it on a global scale.
Simon, what about you? What's more important, the technology or the product?
For Taiwanese, it's operation.
Right.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting. Because compared with the information I got, in Taiwan, usually we try to invest in early stage startup company, and you know the whole most of startup company in Taiwan, or even I thought in Hong Kong, I thought a little bit like this. The style is not, yes, their title is CEO, right? But unfortunately, the CEO just have a chief operation officer, these functions. Actually, they are product managers, not a marketing or for technology. The only one thing they focus is how to leverage a big giant, big manufacturing company in Taiwan, and they provide a little bit differentiation to address the big company where you thought, okay, maybe you will be one of my supplier. That's their funding. They try to fund it a startup company. Their mindset. So answer your questions. They more focus on technology or product. I will say no. Neither no. They focus on operation. So they need some guys told to them, okay, those kinds of technology is great. Or those kinds of product, the end market will buy it. Okay, that's good. I know how to cost down, how to optimize operation.
Yeah.
That's Taiwan style.
So are you completing the jigsaw, or are you just putting people's backs up? What are you fitting in, or are you standing out? How do you feel it works?
So even my fund investors, most of from Japan and Taiwan. Yeah, answer your questions that, to be honest, I invest Taiwan startup company few, just a few, because I can't to find the best candidates I want to invest. So usually right now my strategy is like this. I try to find the similar areas, the two-star company team, and I try to put together. So in UK, maybe we found a very good CTO or CEO, but they lack of operation and how to optimize. And because they are in the same area, for example, like organ on chip, right? So Taiwan, we have a very good team how to leverage supply chain and to do the optimized. And we combine the two teams, then I invest.
Okay.
So that's my strategy.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I want to move the conversation on a little bit because we always talk about what's working, what's going well. And I wanted to see if there's anything that you can think of that's not quite delivered on the promises that it had. So, Michael, let's start with you. Have there any trends that have sort of petered out? Anything that has failed to live up to the hype?
Oh, so many. I don't know where you start. I think so a couple of predictions, and one thing we're certain about when we make forecasts is that they're wrong by definition. But at the moment, the world's slightly obsessed with training algorithms and using a certain type of computer to do that training work, and that computer's a GPU, and that's why NVIDIA is so highly valued right now. So imagine when you've trained all the algorithms to a point where they're good enough, then what changes for the industry? Does that mean NVIDIA will still need all those GPUs? Will they still be the business that it is today, one of the most valuable businesses on the planet? So the question is, what happens when you've trained all the algorithms? Yes, they always need continual training, so there's always going to be a need for innovation in the field of how do you train algorithms. But does that computing suddenly move out closer to humans and machines? So I'm not predicting the failure of that market. I'm just simply saying you can imagine a point in time where demand for a certain type of compute might shift. It might shift from being in the cloud to being closer to where decisions get made either by us as humans or by machines, for example. I mean, look, the world is littered with attempts to do certain things, and we don't have time here today to pick through everything that's not worked out. I just think we'll see a shift in emphasis over time. One of the biggest kind of dynamics at the moment is the world once upon a time bought computers and put them in data centers, and then 3 years later you threw them away and went again. Now we just buy compute from a large hyperscaler, for example. The question we could ask is, might that change as the world becomes a little bit more concerned about security, for example? Is there likely to be a rebalancing? Sorry about that, I thought I threw water at you there, Simon. Is there likely to be a rebalancing between what gets computed in the cloud versus what might occur on premises for a corporate, for example? So I think these are things that are shifts, subtle shifts, that we might see changing. I don't think they're failures as such. I think it's just changes in consumption habits. And as investors, we've got to spot those. We've got to predict those and say, okay, we're going to gamble on that being a thing, this kind of hybrid cloud, somewhere between buying it from an Amazon, a Microsoft, Ali Cloud, and having something on your enterprise premises as well, which you can control and understand the security of. So then that creates opportunities for how do you straddle those two worlds with software typically, and there are areas where we would invest. So we're gambling on that shift basically.
Cyril, I will come back to you in a moment, but it's a difficult question. I'll get you some thinking time. Simon, what about you? Apart from waterproofing yourself, what do you think is going to be? What do you think has not lived up to the hype? And is Michael right? Are we going to see that once we've trained up all our AI bots and the training wheels are off, is that going to suddenly fade away and something else will take its place?
Yeah, maybe I try to follow his statements from different viewing angle, because he mentioned about the world change, right? And usually, as our backgrounds, to be honest, we just can become the follower. We didn't have those. We are not the United States. We are not Europe. So we didn't have superpower to lead the change. So our strategy always how to make the more efficient solutions to help the change become more quickly or cost effective. So that's our mindset. So So for example, just give a very small example, like we mentioned about the on-premises applications, or in the future, the hybrid application, those kinds of structures. Yeah, we know the trend, and we didn't have those kinds of ability to change or to fine-tune any change. But our solution is, right, if you want to do the on-premises, AI on-premises or AI on-chip, just to give you a small example. I thought if you are not a hardware background engineers, you might didn't to emphasize, for example, how the memory and the logic IC, how to cover to each other to make sure your platforms, the edge AI platform is more affordable, especially on price. And Chairman Huang just mentioned about that. He didn't understand that why everybody, when he meet in Euro customers, and everybody talk about AI on chip, they always mention about 3 nanometer over 2 nanometers process. He didn't understand why. Actually, if your allocation, resource allocation, you gotta write the proportions about how to work, how much memory you got, and the logic IC, and how to cover to each other efficiency. Actually, 18 nanometer is good enough. And then you use the 2.5 over 3D stakings. Actually, you can get affordable 20% compared with GPU, and you can get the solution, and you can promote and to generate your AI on chip on premises mostly. So back to your questions, we are a small island, and we didn't have those kinds of ability to talk about the chance. We just follow the chance. But our mindset is how to make the chance mostly, more efficiency. That's our mindset.
Cyril, Simon says he's following change, but you guys are the ones that make change happen. So
yeah.
You know, I know you do lots of R&D. So how do you pick the projects you're going to work on?
Well, for us, what is important is that we see a problem that a technology solves before we invest. So, and as such, we try to do a lot of voice of the customer, and our relationship with the R&D Institute, where the R&D Institute works with pretty much everybody along the value chain of the semiconductor industry, kind of allows us to vet an idea that may have been created within this R&D Institute by talking to customers. So under the assumption that we can produce product A, B, and C using a certain technology, does that solve a problem for you in the market? And having access to those potential customers really helps us to find those, going from technology, looking for an application, to, okay, this now really solves a problem. And so we work closely with imec on the investment side to define whether or not what they come up with solves a problem. And we do the same thing when we invest in an outside company. So we look kind of, we are technology investors. So for us, making sure that what they're doing doesn't violate any laws of physics and can be manufactured down the road is extremely important. But we always look at the market first.
Yeah.
Now, problem with that is timing. Is timing right? And sometimes, you know, things take longer. I mean, we talked about things that haven't lived up to a hype. Let's think about augmented reality. Displays for augmented reality, there's a certain technological challenge to them. That can be solved on the technology side. But as long as nobody comes up with a killer application, why we should walk around with, you know, something projected into our eyes, you know, you can advance the technology that much, but will it become a product? To be seen. But so it needs kind of, you need to be right on technology and market timing at the same time.
Yeah, there's a few other things that you can point at that have been spectacular flops. 3D TVs, for example. A lot of investment went into sitting at home and looking at a screen, using some glasses, which nobody really wants to do. When you wear glasses, as we do, 3 of us wear glasses, every now and then you want to take them off, right? So.
That's the thing about 3D TVs. You either have to put on 2 pairs of glasses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or if you don't wear glasses, you have to put on a pair of glasses, which nobody chooses to do. So it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
What else is affecting markets, though?
I think for me, when we think about autonomous vehicles, we've been around and around and around this loop for quite some time, and I think the technology, generally speaking, exists to make vehicles, broadly speaking, autonomous. The issues are often elsewhere, as in why won't autonomous vehicles become mainstream? Well, there's lots of reasons. You can't put the same tech in every vehicle because it's too expensive. You put all that tech in, and now we're moving towards battery-operated vehicles. You don't have the energy stored in that vehicle to be able to deal with all this extra tech, pulling on the joules of energy that are finite, right? So for me, autonomous vehicles is probably less about the tech and more about the environment in which these things are operating. So do I think autonomous vehicles will happen in my lifetime? I don't think in the way that we conceive them to be. Yeah, a straight motorway, good lighting conditions, you put the autopilot on, off you go. Yeah, sure thing. But in complex environments, cities and other places, it's a lot more difficult. Plus the insurance industry can't quite work out who's the insured entity. The minute you touch the steering wheel, you're the insured entity. The minute you take your hands off it, who pays if it goes wrong? So I think, again, technology doesn't solve every particular opportunity out there. Sometimes the challenges and the reasons for failure are beyond consumers going, I like 3D glasses, I like VR head-up displays, I don't want to drive my car, I want the car to drive itself. The insurers are saying kind of no to that because the liability is, who has liability for that is a question mark.
Are these the kind of things that when people seek investment, is these the kind of things that they talk to you about?
Yeah, I mean,
alongside the money, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, if you look out, I mean, I've heard it from both Simon and from Cyril, and I agree. Actually, my answer to one of your early questions is people, not technology. But anyway, I think if you work back from the opportunity, the use case, the actual thing that's going to change human behaviour, and then work back through the technology supply chain and figure out where on that supply chain could you invest. In other words, you roadmap the things you could do to get to that point. That's not a bad place to play. Then you can work back from there. I think the world will look like this in the future, and therefore what disruptions will need to occur to make that possible. And as an investor, that tends to be how we try and pick spaces and then find companies.
Actually, Cyril, I'll put the same question to you. What is it that people come to you for besides just the money? What do people expect from you?
Honestly, it is so the know-how and the of the industry, the kind of sector focus that we have, that we really probably the largest deep tech fund focused on semiconductor technologies worldwide, and really this expertise that we have, and also the capabilities through our relationship with imec to de-risk technologies, to de-risk the first development steps of a startup.
Simon Chu, sort of similar question, but slightly tweaked,
Okay.
which is that what is it that you would be seeking for from an investor beyond just the money?
Okay, maybe I can share with you that our investment mandate. Our guideline is, if I can't help you post investments, I won't invest you.
I think that's good. Yeah, it's the right answer.
Genuine applause.
Right?
Yeah, from one.
Because the idea,
Still counts. Yeah,
it
go
does.
on.
because we believe that as an investor and a start company, actually we should be like a manager or like a partner, right? So if you thought I can help you, you are more willing to offer the lower price I can invest. But at the same time, you believe once I invest you, and I give you much the support you can't get from other people, and I can create the value for you. Then finally, when you do IPO, the price will be higher. So that is a win-win situation, right? So back to the previous your question. So that's why the two professionals, they mentioned about market and the application. But you know, we are poor Taiwanese. We come to figure out which application or market makes sense. We are follower. So usually you can find Taiwan startup company, maybe they will generate two total different solutions like a gamble. So the plan A to knock the doors. So this guy believes self-driving vehicle will change the world. And the other guy say, hey, no doubt. Always in the future, maybe 20 years, the human being and the self-driving vehicle will co-work together. So, but they just provide, the Taiwanese will just provide two total different solutions to support. That's two simulation. So that's our strategy. And as an investor, of course, if the two solutions, we can support them based on our supply chain resources, we will invest both. We will invest both because in the future, either way will win, right? Anyone once, okay, Mike is correct. It's okay. We combine the two solutions into one.
Sure.
So that's our investment mandate. First one, if I can't help you, I won't invest you. The second one is our investment for technology or solution, we won't do gamble because we didn't have those kinds of ability to figure out. But we try to control every solution. Once in the future, I don't matter so whether the world will be changed for what, but no matter either way, I have solution to support the market. Yeah, that's our strategy.
Okay, and what's your funding status right now?
Pardon?
What would you say your funding status is right now?
Because we invest solution, so actually we not just focus say, hey, we are early stage investor or late stage. No. Our mindset is always focus on solution operation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, we're coming to the last few moments of our session here today. So what I'd like to do is quickly go down the line. And the question is very straightforward, which is anything you think that is coming up in the world of semiconductors that you're really looking forward to, or you think it's going to be a moment, a line in the sand that you're waiting to get to, or a Rubicon that must be crossed. I'll start with you, Michael. What's coming up that you're really positive and looking forward to?
Yeah, so I'm going to use the quantum word, which may become a swear word in the future as people realize that it isn't what we think it is. But there's a part of quantum that is quite clever and can be used to protect networks. So it's not about switching electrical domain computers to this new quantum technique. Park that's for the big security agencies for the foreseeable future, in my opinion. I think we can apply some quantum techniques to legacy technology networks, communication networks, and that I'm pretty excited about the application of some quantum techniques, key point, to protect our networks from bad actors. There we go.
Okay.
And so bad actors could be state-sponsored or whatever.
So for strong security point of view.
Sure.
Okay. Simon, what about you? What's exciting in the future for you?
I believe that because I thought in the future, ESG or green is so important, right? But as a Taiwanese, we try to use the green idea to optimize the R&D and the manufacturing process. I thought this is more important, and that is a very unique field that we can co-work with United Kingdom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And finally, Cyril, what's coming up for you?
For us, we're at the moment quite bullish about photonics. The kind of what new applications will come out of that. Photonics kind of matured in the communications business. but it will continue to flourish there, also in data centers, etc. But then you can think about sensors, you can think about compute, etc. So this is an area that we're quite bullish about, and where we're actively looking for new opportunities these days.
Brilliant. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll call it a day there. Please thank my panel. Michael Dimelow, Simon Chu, Cyril Vancura. Thank you very much.